What is up, guys? You got Not the Worst here, bringing another Black Desert online video, and today we're taking a look at the global lab patch notes that were released for this week, and this deals with PvP balancing, I suppose we'll call it, which they had been talking about doing a few weeks prior. So first I'm going to read this Google translated developer note to you, and then we're going to dive into, I'm going to get into specifics for Dark Knight, since that's the class that I play. Strongly encourage you guys to check out each of your classes. I'll touch a few just kind of as we scroll through the other classes as well. So PvP damage for all characters has been adjusted. Update aims to equalize the skill damage of Succession and Awakening depending on the presence or absence of catching skills and hit assist skills, taking into consideration the personality and variables of each character, such as the difficulty of engaging in battle, as well as differential and escaping as well. Google Translate. Adjusted to, in particular, the damage of the PvP technology of the lore has been mainly adjusted, but if the damage of the skill is adjusted, the damage ratio of each character to the character has been increased. In addition, these adjustments were made so as not to affect PvE as much as possible. Please do a lot of tests through the Black Desert Research Institute, and we'll refer to your opinion as much as possible. So I'm going to skim through the other classes, and then I'll jump into Dark Knight. After that, again, you can click on the link in the description below. So like I was saying, I encourage you to take a look at your class for it. Also keep in mind, this is what's going on in the global lab at the moment. That doesn't mean this is going to be solidified coming to the live servers. We've seen plenty of times where they implement some changes that don't come to fruition, or they modify the changes before it actually hits live servers. So if you're freaking out, chill out. It's all just global lab for now. You can freak out a little bit later on if it goes live. All right, so you're going to see throughout the pages here of the different classes, there are overall a large amount of damage decreases or nerfs on a ton of skills for a ton of classes. In some cases, there are damage buffs. As you can see, Sork has a 15% and 12% here, along with some others listed as individual skills, so on and so forth. So check out your class for it. I am, again, just going to focus on Dark Knight for it. To help you guys out with some of the translation for this, if you're trying to see what skills mean what, if it says things like Jin, or sometimes they'll say Gin with a G, or Gene like this, those are absolute skills. And then if you see something like this where it says River, or sometimes it'll say Strong, that's Prime. So those will be succession skills. So that should help you out if you're trying to kind of figure out which ones it's talking about. From what I can tell, it touches on both Succession and Awakening skills across the board. So here we have the Dark Knight, and fortunately from the DK Discord, we got someone very kind to go ahead and translate these a little bit cleaner so that the adjustments have been made for what the names are. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull up the sheet right here so we can just kind of get actual NA terms for this instead of Google Translate. So following skills PvP damage have been reduced by 17%. We got Absolute Airstrike, Slanted Bounce, Ravage Rake and Flow, Darkness Burst, Repeated Annihilation, lol, Shadow Bullet, Obsidian Ashes and Touch of Exploitation, Spirit Blaze, Seed of Catastrophe, Flow Spirit Blaze, Flow Bombardment, Flow for Root of Catastrophe, Twilight Dash, Trap of Vidir, Soul Snatch, Cluster Despair. This should be Grip of Grudge, Wrath of Vidir, and Obsidian Blaze. And then we've got a 15% nerf to Succession skills. Prime Ravage Rake, Wheel of Fortune, Obsidian Ashes, Slanted Bounce, Airstrike, Twilight Dash, and then Absolute Wheel of Fortune, also with 15%. And now for individual ones, Pervasive Darkness, PvP damage reduced by 21%. That's the Absolute version. Absolute Lunacy is 13%. Absolute Corrupt Ground, I don't think anyone's ever using that if they want to stay alive in PvP. But in case you were thinking about it, it's now even worse because it's got a 27% nerf to it as well. Absolute Enforcement dropped by 30%. Spirit Legacy PvP damage 10%, Shattering Darkness 1% nerf, Shadow Strike 27%, and then a few more Succession skills. Lunacy of Vidir 11%, Spirit Legacy in Succession 7%. Interestingly, not quite as much as Spirit Legacy in Awakening. That's nerf, which is odd because Awakening struggles a bit more with PvP damage than Succession. Succession Pervasive Darkness reduced by 20%, and Enforcement has been reduced by approximately 28%. So Dark Knight had no skills that were increased in damage whatsoever. I can see an argument where Succession damage for Dark Knight was pretty out of whack. In general, it hit very, very, very hard, which is true. So I'm not entirely shocked to see some nerfs for this. This looks pretty heavy. What's kind of blowing my mind is how little our damage already is in PvP in Awakening, and to see these sets just completely nerfed across the board, not a single buff at all, is really interesting. So I can't really tell what the overall plan here was. I think just reducing damage pretty much across the board, but when you look at things like, let's say Guardian, for instance, they weren't really hit much. You've got a 9% PvP damage reduction on essentially all their skills, just like across the board. They're just listed that way, just a flat 9% damage reduction. Guardian's damage is pretty high. It's pretty very high, even in PvP. For it, a 9% damage reduction is a thing, but when you have like some of our major skills being nerfed 27, 30%, 11% on bread and butter like Lunacy of Adir and Succession, things like that, it looks really, really heavy. Obviously, I don't know how this is going to play out or interactions with other classes and how their nerfs and or buffs are going to be. I think the idea here is to maybe promote longer lasting fights. This can make DP or evasion builds stronger potentially, or in some cases the Sork actually got a decent amount of damage increases on some skills, so I don't know how that's going to balance. I'm hoping this just gets heavily tested before they even consider putting these things onto the live servers, even to the KR server. I really hope they heavily test this, because this is a lot of changes, especially coming off the back of the PvE changes. This could potentially just change how PvP interactions work in Black Desert overall. We don't really know without testing it. This is just on paper, which doesn't mean a whole lot other than giving you some idea of what's going on. So we'll have to see how classes interact after quite a bit of testing. So that's going to be it for this video. Again, check out the link in the description below so you can take a look at what's going on with your class, and hopefully those couple of tips will help you with translations as far as knowing whether it's Succession or Awakening. And let me know what you guys think about it. What's going on with your class that's a big deal. Let me know in the comments below so we can kind of get a little discussion going on, and I'd like to hear from you. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to like it. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit subscribe. This is my secondary channel that I am using, as my original channel was hacked, and I'm still in the process of trying to get that hopefully recovered. So make sure you subscribe to this one to get notifications when new videos go live. If you want to catch me playing live, there's a link to my Twitch page in the description below. You can head on over there and drop a follow to get notifications for that as well. With that said, that's going to be it for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching, and I will see you next time.